Stepkid Radio with Matt McGill. Weekday mornings, 6 until 9 on the Talk of Chicago, 1690 WVON.
The reason why I'm asking race-specific questions is because I don't want this interview to end and people say he didn't deal with the disparity between what's going on in black Chicago and what's going on in white Chicago or Hispanic Chicago. I want our listeners to feel like Rahm Emanuel gets it. And that's why I'm asking these race-specific questions. Because when you look at unemployment in the African-American community, it's disproportionately higher than the rest of the country. And in the city, the numbers are the same. When you look at violence in the city, and you know that's been a big issue nationally for Chicago, the reputation of what's been going on, kids getting shot and killed on the south and west sides of Chicago. It is happening in our community, not so much so in non-black Chicago. The 3% contract is just flat out embarrassing for a city that has 40% population of black folks. For professionals in this city to only be doing business with Chicago to the tune of 3%, that is embarrassing. The mayor should have been embarrassed by that. I want Rahm Emanuel to feel that, understand that's where the passion out of this community is coming from. So when you leave this interview, you're like, hey, I talked about it. And people, black Chicago is walking around saying, Rahm talked about it. And then that's when the campaigning begins. So then when you come back on, you're following up on that. And then people are going to not think that this is going to be Mayor Daley Part 2. Result-wise.
Can I say this? When I was President Obama's chief of staff, and we used to, at the end of the day, we'd have this thing called wrap. I would wrap up with him. We would go over the whole day. Sometimes we would talk about global issues. Sometimes we talked about our family. Sometimes we would talk about sports. And sometimes we talked about a multiple set of issues. And a lot of times sometimes we just talked about Chicago, what was going on. Because he served as a senator when I was a congressman, and our respective visions take on issues. And the one that I feel most passionate about, there's a couple issues, obviously the economy, but crime. I led the effort to pass the 100,000 community police officers and getting Chicago, which got thousands of cops. The effort to pass the Brady Bill, so a 5-day waiting period on handgun control, the assault weapon ban, to ban those weapons that are used by gangbangers, that intimidate our kids and our responsible and respectful families. The Violence Against Women Act, Megan's Law for community notification on sexual predators when they're released and moved into a community, and my own bill, which was the Elder Justice Act, which protected seniors and put on the federal books crimes against seniors. These are the things I worked on. And yes, there's crime throughout this city, but it has particularly ravaged the African-American community, where kids' ability to go to school and come to school is an experience that should not ever be experienced by a child. Or the fear that a parent has. And the reason I worked on those issues, and the President and I talked about this, is that sense of vulnerability. I don't like using the notion that it's a war zone, but that sense of insecurity on the most basic level, and that attacking that issue of violence and the insecurity that exists in a neighborhood where the sense of a neighborhood is lost because of that violence.
All right, Rahm Emanuel.
And that is
Go ahead.
I can listen, Matt. This to me, that is the experience when I went to Englewood and went to the Child Center. And here was a safe place in this ravaged community, not only free of violence, but full of love and hope. And these mothers who have chosen something for their child, we owe every one of us that are in public life, because those mothers have made a choice to give their children some sense of hope. And that early childhood center that is doing exactly right, reading to kids, giving them love, giving them a sense of care, and helping those kids take what's in that building and having it spring outside, because what's outside is not anywhere close to what's in that building.
All right.
And that is not, Matt, that is not a sense of a neighborhood. And deeply, and the president and I have talked about this repeatedly, that sense that where a neighborhood loses its own sense because of the violence. That is a job. Now, I know very well, given where I live, that is not that sense. The mayor, when I campaign all over, has to have that sense, which is why fighting crime, given my background, what I've worked on, you have got to have that sense, because we have got to return to those streets, the feeling of it being a neighborhood.
Stepkid Radio with Matt McGill. Weekday mornings, 6 until 9 on the Talk of Chicago, 1690 WVON.
Gaynor Hall, guest co-host. Rahm, I know I've kept you way over your time. I wanted to thank you for coming on to the show and work on getting me in the White House so I can broadcast the show live in the White House, man.
Yeah, I know how to sneak in. You and I will do it together, okay?
I was going to say, you got some contacts in that area, my friend.
I know how to get through the Northwest Gate on the security thing, and you come with me.
There you go. Come back. We want to talk to you.
I loved it. I will do it.
Yeah, we like the way you deal with the issues straight up. That's the way you do it, man. Love it. Let's get you in the studio.
That's the way people want it, and that's why I'm going to do it straight.
Let's do it. Rahm Emanuel, everybody, thanks for coming on. He's got to run.
Stepkid Radio with Matt McGill. Weekday mornings, 6 until 9 on the Talk of Chicago, 1690 WVON.